Have you ever wondered why some women never have to compete for attention, yet they are the ones men can never forget? It's not because they are the most beautiful in the room. It's not because they know clever tricks to seduce. Sometimes they appear quite ordinary, not overly polished, not chasing perfection. And yet, when they leave, the room feels empty. When they fall silent, the silence still echoes. There is a kind of woman like that. Men don't try to control her, because they are too busy trying not to lose her. In today's world, every piece of love advice seems to follow the same script. Be gentle, but not too gentle. Be smart, but not so much that he feels inferior. Be sexy, but don't come off as too available. Be independent, but still need him enough to feel like a woman. Each line reads like a manual filled with hundreds of rules, as if love were a game with fixed moves. But the more you read, the more lost you become, because these rules contradict each other, overlap, and eventually distort who you are. It's a maze where the harder you try to follow the right path, the further you drift from yourself. Pause for a moment and think, what if all those rules were wrong from the start? What if following those so-called secrets to keep a man only turns you into a forgettable, diluted version of yourself? The truth is, there is a kind of energy, a presence that makes men both enchanted and afraid. It's not about looks. It doesn't come from mind games. It's not a trick to make him jealous or a tactic to stay on his mind. It runs much deeper. Men call it danger. Dangerous because it can't be tamed. Dangerous because it can't be owned. Dangerous because once you experience it, you can't go back to the ordinary. So what is that energy? It's the presence of a woman who belongs to herself. She doesn't follow any script. She doesn't try to be chosen. She lives, breathes, loves, and walks as if the world is hers. And the paradox is this. The moment she stops trying to hold on, he becomes afraid of losing her. The moment she stops trying to prove anything, he is already convinced. Picture this. A man can meet 10 women who seem perfect on paper, smart, gentle, and attractively composed. But after dinner, he goes home, scrolls his phone, and forgets their names the next day. Then there is one woman. She doesn't try to impress. She doesn't smile too much to please. She doesn't trim herself to fit a mold. But at night, he lies awake. He remembers a glance, a tilt of her chin, a moment of silence she didn't rush to fill. She leaves a mark that cannot be erased. What makes that difference? It's not your insecurity. It's his. When a man meets a woman who is free, he feels like he's stumbled upon a treasure that might vanish at any moment. That fear of losing her doesn't send him into panic. It becomes the fuel of desire. It's not anxiety, it's a fire. Some might say, that sounds like a power play. But it's not. Because power plays are when you pretend not to need anyone while secretly craving their attention. Power plays are when you measure every text, every pause, to manipulate emotions. What we are talking about isn't pretending, it's real. This dangerous kind of allure doesn't come from strategy. It blooms when you cultivate an inner world so rich that no one else is needed to complete it. When you give yourself validation, you are no longer enslaved by the need to beg for it from others. There's a paradox in psychology. The more tightly you hold on to someone, the more you push them away. But when you stand firm in your own world, you become a natural magnet. Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." When a woman becomes aware of the power within, she no longer acts out unconscious patterns of seeking rescue from men. And in that moment, she becomes dangerous. Not because she harms, but because she forces men to confront their own shadows and deepest desires. Be honest. How many times have you shrunk yourself to fit into someone else's palm? How many times have you smiled to stay quiet while your heart wanted to speak out? How many times have you waited for a message, missing life outside your window? And when he left, you felt like you lost a part of yourself? If you've been there, you'll understand why sovereignty is so attractive. Because it is a reminder that says, I am not a possession. I am a universe. When a man encounters this kind of energy, he is no longer on familiar ground. All the tricks that used to work fall flat. Sweet words drop to the floor. Vague promises have no place here. He must decide. Either enter her world with full respect or be left outside. And here's the key. A woman with this energy doesn't always make men feel comfortable, but she always makes them feel alive. In love, comfort is a sleeping pill. Challenge is a wake-up call. The question is, do you want to be the sleeping pill or the wake-up call? The world has told women for too long that love means shrinking, demanding less, being less, not being too much. But what men truly remember, long for, and fear losing is exactly that too muchness. The freedom, the passion, the unapologetic existence. We've talked a lot about rules to keep a man, but rarely do we ask the reverse. Why must he be kept? If you become a whole universe on your own, then his presence is simply a beautiful addition. And it is in that very not needing that he begins to crave your presence. This dangerous kind of magnetism is not a dating tactic. It's a way of living. It begins with a daily choice. I will not sell my presence cheap. I will not ask for permission to be myself. I will not wait for someone else to give me value, because that value I have already given to myself. And when you live this way, everyone who enters your life will feel it clearly. There are no games here, no begging, only a kingdom. And the only question for him to answer is, does he deserve to enter? This is the beginning of the journey we will walk together. A journey to understand why queen energy makes men both captivated and terrified. Why, in a world full of waiting princesses, it is the women who know they are queens that become unforgettable in a man's heart. But if true attraction is not about beauty or mind games, then where does it come from? The answer will lead us to a difficult truth. It lies in the very way most relationships slowly begin to die. Most relationships do not end in the thunder of betrayal or the storm of heated arguments. They die a much quieter death, the death of boredom, of predictability, of days passing by without a trace of excitement. Love often fades when admiration disappears, when one person no longer sees the other as a radiant individual, but merely as part of the familiar furniture, convenient, comfortable, but no longer heart-racing. Think back to the early days of a relationship. A surprise message made you so flustered, you read it over and over again. A plan to meet filled your week with anticipation. That person used to be the most special part of your schedule, an absolute priority. But over time, that specialness fades. Messages are no longer answered right away, but the next day, or even later. Dates stop being the highlight of the weekend, becoming the backup plan when nothing more exciting comes up. The person who was once a privilege now feels like an option. This is the dangerous turning point. When a relationship shifts from the land of privilege to the land of convenience, the flame starts to go out. And it's not because the other person has stopped caring, but because unconsciously, they no longer see you as rare, as a precious gift. You've become ever present, always there, never leaving. And that certainty, ironically, kills desire. Deep down, people are drawn to what is fragile and rare. When something is always available, always guaranteed, always easy, it loses its pull. We often think that to keep someone, we must become a safe harbor. But have you ever realized that sometimes that very safety turns into dullness? A room too familiar can become a gilded cage, where everything seems fine, yet something feels lifeless. A man might be in a secure relationship, where he is pampered, prioritized, and placed at the center. But one day, when his eyes glance over a woman who radiates freedom, when he hears a voice that speaks with confidence and truth, he begins to feel the difference, not consciously comparing, but sensing a quiet echo in his mind. She doesn't need anyone to exist, and that is exactly what makes her captivating. A man may forget dozens, even hundreds of women who fit the mold, but he will never forget the one who kept him on uncertain ground. The woman he knew could walk away at any moment, and he could never be sure he would get to keep her. That uncertainty, paradoxically, is what keeps him up at night. It makes him try harder. The most dangerous thing to male desire is not jealousy. It's not competition. It's certainty. When he believes you will always be there, no matter what he does, says, forgets, or neglects, the fire within him begins to fade. Because people do not value what comes too easily. What is always present eventually becomes invisible. So, what makes the difference? It's a certain energy that men can feel deeply. You are a complete world. You could walk away if you wanted to. Your presence is not a given. It is a gift, not an obligation. And in the moment he realizes this, admiration begins to bloom. Here's a hard truth. Men are not haunted by the women who pampered them, but by the women who challenged them. He may like convenience, but he respects rarity. And where there is respect, there is fertile ground for lasting desire. Look into your own experiences. Have you ever noticed that the person who once captivated you wasn't the one always available, but the one who had a world of their own that you wanted to understand? The very moment you were unsure if you had a place in their life, you wanted to prove you deserved it. This is the hidden mechanism behind all relationships. Privilege or option. When you are a privilege, your presence makes his heart race. He fears losing you. He puts in effort to keep you. When you become an option, you fade into the background. Always there, nothing to lose, and he stops trying. The real question is not, how do you make him choose you? The real question is, do you dare to live as a privilege, a complete universe, so that your presence is never taken for granted? This is the foundation of the dangerous allure we are exploring. It is not about putting on a show. It is not about playing hard to get. It is a way of being, a way of living where you refuse to become furniture in someone else's life. You are a work of art, a kingdom, a world that anyone would be lucky to enter. And the paradox is this: the moment you stop needing to hold on to anyone, you become the one no one wants to lose. So what creates the difference between a woman easily forgotten and one who lingers in a man's mind forever? To understand that, we must look at the invisible kind of energy she radiates. There's something few people admit. What draws men most powerfully is not flawless beauty or clever gestures learned from dating books. Those things may catch their eyes for a moment, but are quickly forgotten. What makes a man keep thinking about you long after the day has ended is not your appearance, but a certain energy that radiates from within. It's like an invisible frequency he unconsciously picks up, one that stirs his curiosity, his admiration, and even a little unease. And paradoxically, that unease becomes the engine of desire. That energy has two defining qualities: authenticity and independence. Imagine this. In a crowded room where everyone is trying to impress by laughing louder, talking more, and telling better stories, suddenly, there is a woman who does nothing special. She doesn't compete for attention, doesn't rush to prove her wit or charm. She simply exists, at ease in her own skin, with no need to please anyone. And somehow, that ease becomes the brightest light in the room. While others wear masks, she is real. And realness always outshines pretense. A man may not be able to explain it, but in his mind, a signal goes off. She doesn't need me to feel complete. That is when curiosity begins to knock. In a world where so many people rely on others for validation, the presence of a woman who validates herself becomes rare and precious. It makes him want to know more, to be invited into her world, not to be its center, but to be a welcomed part of it. This can feel challenging to many men, even threatening to their ego, because they are used to being the universe of their partner. They are used to unconditional admiration, to being the absolute priority. But when they meet a woman whose joy, peace, and self-worth do not revolve around them, they feel unbalanced, yet unable to look away. That independence is like a flame that burns without wind. He realizes, even if he walks away, that flame will keep burning. And that very realization makes him want to stay, just to feel the warmth of a fire that doesn't need him to survive. Independence does not mean coldness. It doesn't deny love. It simply means this: you can be happy with or without him. Your world keeps spinning. You continue to pursue your work, your passions, your friendships, your travels, your dreams. Any man who steps into your life will see that you are not pausing to wait. You are not shrinking to fit into his frame. He only has two choices: walk with you or be left behind. Authenticity holds a similar power. In a society where everyone learns how to please, how to be not too much, a woman who dares to speak her truth, who dares to say no, who dares to show her real emotions, becomes a rare landmark. Men may be used to agreeable nods, but when they hear an honest challenge, they wake up. They may enjoy comfort, but they respect truth. Because truth requires courage, and courage always carries magnetism. There is a subtle difference here. Some confuse independence with the arrogant attitude of, "I don't need anyone." But the energy we're talking about isn't a mask. It doesn't scream. It doesn't show off. It's calm, quiet, yet solid as stone. True independence doesn't need to be proven. It's like the ocean. Whether you praise it or criticize it, it remains the ocean. And that calm is exactly what makes men feel that it's dangerous. Because they cannot predict it, cannot control it, cannot use tricks to make you dependent. Their only option is to respect you and try harder. Think back to a moment when someone took your breath away. Not because they were the most beautiful, but because they radiated a quiet confidence. They didn't say notice me. They just lived as themselves, and their presence naturally drew every eye. That is the kind of energy men cannot resist. In love, women are often taught to make men feel comfortable, to protect their egos. But in truth, comfort for too long kills desire. What men remember is not the woman who was always agreeable, but the one who made them feel they had to rise to the occasion. The combination of authenticity and independence creates a magnetism that makes men both crave and fear you. They crave the rare sense of vitality you bring. They fear the knowledge that if they're not enough, you could walk away at any moment. And it is this very paradox that holds the secret of dangerous allure. It's not about wearing a mask to make him insecure. It's about living truthfully, and that truth stirs something primal in his mind. At a deeper level, this is the contrast between living to be accepted and living as yourself. The first kind is always afraid of being abandoned, so she clings, shrinks, sacrifices. The second kind has no need to cling, because she knows she is already whole. And when you are whole, others never want to let you go. When a man meets this kind of energy, he is forced to make a choice. Either grow into the man who is worthy of you, or accept being left behind. There is no easy path. And in that choice, many men discover an awakening they've never felt before. So you see, the secret to attraction does not lie in tricks learned from a magazine. It lies in how you show up. When you are real, you don't need to play a role. When you are independent, you don't need to hold tight. When you are free, you don't need to be rescued. That is when you become the woman a man never forgets. But to fully understand the power of this energy, we must look deeper into a silent battlefield inside the male mind where two opposing desires are constantly pulling, the safe harbor and the endless sea. Deep inside every man lies a silent battle few ever admit. It is not a fight between logic and emotion, nor between right and wrong, but a conflict between two opposing inner voices pulling him in different directions. One voice longs for stability, for safety, for the comfort of a peaceful home. The other calls him toward challenge, adventure, and something elusive that makes him feel truly alive. Picture this. Part of him wants a safe harbor, a place where someone always waits, always smiles, always soothes. A home where each day he knows someone will open the door, where a warm dinner awaits, where comforting words are always ready. This is the dream that fits societal norms. The harbor gives him peace, a shelter from the storms of life. It makes him feel loved, prioritized, placed at the center of someone's world. But at the same time, in another layer of his being, a primal voice rises. It is the call of the sea, a place with no guarantees, no straight lines, only wild waves and unknown horizons. That voice whispers, "There's something out there that will make you feel truly alive." This is the desire for adventure, for challenge, for the unpredictable, carved deep into his instincts by thousands of years of evolution. These two forces do not cancel each other out. They exist side by side within a man's mind. And this inner pull is the secret behind real attraction. Because most women, whether intentionally or not, only fulfill one side. The woman who is the harbor is a familiar image. She is gentle, caring, and always yielding. She becomes the warm home, the soft chair he can sink into any time. At first, he is enchanted by the ease of it. It gives him a sense of power, of ruling a calm kingdom. But over time, that castle turns into a gilded cage. No more challenge, no more mystery. What was once paradise becomes dull. Then there's another kind of woman. She is not a competitor in the usual sense. In fact, sometimes she doesn't even seem to pay him much attention. She doesn't chase, doesn't wait. She has her own projects, her own dreams, her own fires burning bright, with no need for anyone to ignite them. She is the sea, in human form. When a man meets her, his mind explodes in conflict. On one side, the safety of the harbor. On the other, the fierce, unpredictable pull of the sea. He knows that staying in the castle offers stability, but his heart races at the call of something wilder. Because deep in his subconscious, he knows this truth. A life too predictable slowly becomes the death of passion. He remembers a moment. It could be the way her eyes lit up when she talked about a project she loved, the tone of her voice when she stood her ground, or the way she walked with quiet confidence, not looking for anyone's gaze. These tiny fragments become an echo. They follow him even when he returns to his peaceful room, even as he sits beside the harbor woman who is still kind, still giving, and he realizes that peace has become routine. Each day, a copy of the last. But the echo from the sea reminds him, somewhere out there is something that still makes his heart beat faster, something that reminds him he is alive. This is the paradox. His mind tells him to stay with what is safe. His instinct urges him toward what is bold. And in this inner battle, what tips the scale is not beauty, not seduction skills. It's energy. The queen woman doesn't try to be the sea. She already is. Because her life doesn't revolve around a man. She builds her own kingdom. And anyone who wants to join her must prove they are worthy. When a man stands at the crossroads, he feels the tension clearly. One path leads to comfort, but quiet erosion. The other to challenge, even unease, but undeniable aliveness. And most men, once they've tasted the ocean, find it hard to return to the silent castle. It is on this silent battlefield that true attraction is decided. Not by love games, not by appearances, but by the way you live in his mind. Are you the harbor or the sea? That answer will determine if he forgets you in weeks or is haunted by you for years. What's important to emphasize is this. You don't need to pretend to be the sea. If you're acting, it's just another mask. And masks always fall. What makes someone truly the sea is when she lives her own life. When she doesn't shrink to fit anyone's frame. When she dares to be real, to be different, to build a world she loves. That kind of energy naturally makes her a challenge, a mystery, an adventure man cannot stop thinking about. And as this contrast becomes clearer, he begins to understand a deep truth. Lasting attraction doesn't come from ease. It comes from admiration. He may like the harbor woman, but it is the ocean woman he respects. And from that respect, long-term desire is born. Harbor or ocean? That is the question every man must face. But to truly become the ocean, to keep this powerful and dangerous allure, a woman needs one quiet but mighty weapon: boundaries. And that is what we will explore next. It is not beauty, nor surface-level charm that creates the most powerful kind of attraction. It is boundaries. Boundaries are not walls that push others away. They are more like fine, sharp lines that clearly communicate one thing to anyone who crosses them. This is sacred ground. The woman who carries queen energy does not need to raise her voice. She does not need to prove herself. She simply lives by her own boundaries. And that quiet consistency radiates a strength that men both respect and desire. Picture this familiar scene. You and a man have plans. You've been looking forward to the evening all day. Then, just an hour before the date, he sends a message. Sorry, my friends called. Can we meet another time? A harbor-type woman will swallow her disappointment and reply sweetly, no problem. I understand. Just let me know when you're free. She believes that being easygoing will keep him around, but in truth, this is the moment she lowers her value. Because the unspoken message he receives is, my time doesn't matter. I'll wait for you no matter what. And from that moment on, the balance of respect starts to tilt. But a woman with queen energy responds differently. She still feels disappointed she is human, not a machine, but she does not let emotion take the wheel. Instead, she replies calmly, that's a shame. I was really looking forward to tonight. Enjoy your time with your friends. I'll be busy next week, but maybe we can check in later. The message sounds simple, but it carries a powerful undertone. 1. My time has value. I am not always available. 2. If you want to see me, you'll need to take initiative. 3. I don't create drama, but I also won't allow myself to be dismissed. And what happens in a man's mind at that moment is fascinating. He feels a mix of disappointment, confusion, and challenge. He begins to wonder, does she not need me? Am I losing my chance? And that little spark of uncertainty reignites his desire to pursue. What he once took for granted suddenly feels rare. What he thought would be easy now requires effort to hold on to. Boundaries, when set with calm and respect, not only protect the woman, but elevate her value in a man's eyes. Every time she says no with gentle firmness, he learns that love with her is not an automatic privilege. It is something to be earned. And the paradox is, the less certain he feels, the more he wants her. Look at the everyday details. A late-night text asking, what are you up to? Goes unanswered until the next day. A disagreement where she doesn't shy away from sharing a different opinion. A night when she chooses to go to the gym or meet friends instead of rearranging her schedule just to see him. Each of these moments adds to a larger picture. This is a woman with her own life, her own value, and no one is allowed to cross that line. The most important thing to understand is this: boundaries are not a tactic. They are not a power play. If they are fake, they will be exposed. Real boundaries come from deep self-respect. It's when you know what you deserve, and you refuse to lower that standard for anyone. When this becomes a way of life, you don't need to act strong. Your strength radiates from your calm. Men may enjoy comfort, but they only truly admire a woman when they meet her boundaries, because deep down, they know this truth. A woman who cannot protect her own worth will never be able to protect the worth of a relationship. On the other hand, a woman who sets clear limits builds a foundation of respect. And respect is the oxygen that keeps love alive. So what happens in a man's mind the first time he runs into a woman's boundary? Why does attraction shift from something simple to something deeper, something closer to reverence? The answer lies in the transformation from liking to admiration. And that is what we will explore next. There is a subtle moment in a man's mind when he realizes that what he feels for a woman is no longer just liking. Liking can come from many things: a pleasant smile, the comfort of being around her, the ease of being pampered. But admiration is entirely different. Admiration comes from confrontation, from challenge, from the fact that this woman makes him reflect on himself and pushes him to grow. And it is in this turning point that short-term attraction transforms into lasting magnetism. A man might like the girl who laughs at all his jokes, but he admires the woman who looks him in the eye and says, "I don't find that funny." He might like the woman who's always available, but he admires the one with a full life who makes him adjust his schedule to see her. He might like the woman who always agrees, but he admires the one who says no when something goes against her values. Liking brings comfort. Admiration brings reverence. And only reverence can sustain long-term desire. A fire can spark from liking, but it will quickly burn out if not fueled by respect. On the other hand, when there is respect, that fire becomes a glowing ember that keeps burning, even through the coldest seasons. This is the difference between short-lived attraction and lasting love. The harbor-type woman can spark initial excitement, but that excitement fades like bubbles in the wind. The queen woman, however, goes much further. She may frustrate him, confuse him, even make him feel small at times. But from those very feelings, respect is born. And from respect comes a love that is not easily replaced. Imagine a man faced with two images. On one side, the woman who always says sure, who's ready to drop everything just to be with him. On the other side, the woman who says, "I have class tonight, but I'm free tomorrow." One offers ease. The other sets a challenge. And the truth is, people do not value what comes too easily. Things of worth always require effort to attain. Unconsciously, the man begins to connect the dots. If she requires effort from me, she must be worth it. And once that link is made, his perception shifts completely. She is no longer a casual option. She becomes a standard that makes him want to rise. He doesn't just like being with her. He admires the way she lives, the way she sets boundaries, the way she honors herself. And that admiration is what truly keeps him around. On this journey, admiration doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from small moments. When she keeps her promises to herself. When she does not tolerate disrespect. When she chooses truth over convenience. Each of these moments imprints on his mind. And they build until one day he realizes, "I don't just want her. I want to be worthy of her." That is the essence of admiration. This shift has the power to completely alter the course of a relationship. If it stays at the level of liking, the feelings will fade once the novelty wears off. But when it deepens into admiration, love becomes a catalyst for growth. The man begins to mature, to take more responsibility, because loving her is no longer a casual pleasure, it is an honor to uphold. Perhaps this is love's most beautiful paradox. Lasting attraction does not come from making someone comfortable. It comes from inspiring them to grow. And the woman who lives with boundaries, who stands firm in her values, is the one who creates that transformation. So, what happens next when a man steps into the realm of admiration? When he realizes that true love cannot exist without respect, and that respect is the oxygen that fuels passion. That is what we'll explore in the next part. where the secret to lasting connection begins to unfold. When a man begins to admire, it's not just the way he sees you that changes. It's the way he sees himself in the relationship. Liking may lead him to you for enjoyment, but admiration is what makes him stay and protect what he values. And from that moment on, one truth becomes clear. Without respect, love is a fragile flame. With respect, it becomes a lasting torch that lights the way forward. Imagine two couples. In one, the woman always yields, always puts him first. He feels comfortable, but after a few years, that comfort turns into habit. He stops trying, stops appreciating, because everything has become expected. The flame that once burned bright is now just ashes. In the other couple, the woman holds her boundaries, keeps growing, and reminds him that loving her is not a given, it's a privilege. Here, he doesn't just value her presence. He feels a need to grow into the man who deserves it. Respect in this relationship isn't optional, it's foundational. And because of that, passion doesn't fade. It's fueled every single day. Men can easily find short-lived pleasures, but to stay, they need a deeper reason. That reason isn't ease, it's meaningful challenge. Because deep down, every man wants to prove his worth. When he meets a woman who requires his best, he realizes that this love not only brings him warmth, it reflects his own value back to him. There comes a quiet moment. He's alone, thinking back on their conversations. He remembers feeling jealous when she stood her ground, small when she said no to something that didn't align with her values, slightly hurt when she chose her friends over him. And then he realizes those very moments made him better. He listens more. He respects others' space more. And most importantly, he understands that love isn't something to own, it's something to walk alongside. In that moment, admiration becomes something more. It becomes devotion. And from that devotion comes the desire to build something lasting. He doesn't just want her beside him. He wants to build a kingdom with her. What's interesting is that many women believe they must make love easy and smooth to keep a man. But in truth, what makes a man stay is the feeling that the love he's living is valuable, that it's a love that challenges him to grow and contribute. When he respects you, he is also respecting himself. When he puts in effort for you, he sees himself becoming stronger, more meaningful. Respect is the oxygen of passion. Without it, no matter how bright the initial spark, the fire will eventually die. But with it, that fire can burn for years, not because of novelty, but because of daily appreciation. A man may play with a princess, but he kneels only for a queen. A princess waits to be rescued, needing to be placed at the center of a small world. A queen is different. She does not wait. She does not shrink herself to fit anyone. She builds her own kingdom sovereign and steadfast. And when a man steps into that world, if he is brave enough to stay, he knows he hasn't just found love. He's found a reason to become a better man. The end of this journey is not a formula, not a list of tricks to keep a man. It's a profound reminder. The most dangerous kind of attraction doesn't come from playing games. It comes from having the courage to be yourself, to set your boundaries, to live a life so full that you don't need anyone to rescue you. And the most beautiful paradox of all is this: when you don't need anyone, you become the one everyone wants to hold on to. Respect is the oxygen of long-term attraction. That's not just a quote, it's a truth. And if there's one final thing you carry from this story, let it be this: be the queen of your own kingdom, so that anyone who wants to enter must first prove they are worthy. This is where the story closes. And yet, it is also the beginning of the story you will now write for yourself. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.